In this video, I'm going to take the next 10 minutes and tell you why you are your biggest problem and why that's not a bad thing. My name is John. I'm the founder of the Heisen Transformation, and today I'm going to talk about my biggest problem, which is me. So, what does it mean to be your biggest problem? It's actually not like a blame thing, but I think what that does mean is that we create our own problems because of how we have a reaction to the things that are outside of us. And then because of that, there's like all of these things that kind of come together and create the usual patterns that we interact with things. And how we engage with the world ends up being the source of our problem. What's a good example of this? So, for example, if you're working in a situation and you're having conversations, like let's say you work and you're working in service, you have conversations with customers and you keep running into the same problem over and over again. Um, is it that every single patient or every single person, I work in healthcare, if there's every single patient or person that comes to you, are they all the problems? Or is it something that comes from yourself? A great example of this is when you're working in the pharmacy. I used to work in, or well, I work in community pharmacy and I've worked there for the last 15 years. And one of the things that I notice is that there's often a discomfort around wait times, like when telling people like how long to wait. And it seems like there's always a little bit of a fight. So there's this tendency to feel like, oh, I need to give a certain wait time or whatnot. And the predominant kind of like thought is that patients want things really quickly and in a short amount of time. So if I can't handle that and if I can't deliver that, then the patient will be upset. So to get ahead of that, I'm going to then say, I can do this for you as quick as I can. And I like a whole like, if you ever get medications and go to a pharmacy, think about all the things that you're being told and then think about like how much of that it actually relates to you getting your medications safely and accurately, which is the main responsibility of the pharmacist. Anyways, in that situation, because of how we show up and how we communicate in that situation, it can become challenging. Another good example of this is, for example, if you are saying that you want to you understand somebody, like if you're listening to somebody and they're talking to you, maybe they're giving you feedback about yourself. A lot of times we listen to respond rather than listen, full stop. And that becomes our problem because how we then respond to that will be just to get a response in, which means rather than saying like, I understand and I accept everything that you've said, let me reflect on that and I will like consider that and see how that kind of like plays in and then make a considered response taking in what the other person has just said. Sometimes what happens is you can start off with like, I see your point, but my point is better. I'm going to make a point that rebuts your point. Or I understand, but blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm going to give you another excuse or just start talking about what I want. Maybe the worst is just like going completely off a tangent and ignoring what people said. So in that case, what happens is like when I'm listening, for example, if I'm listening to somebody and they're giving me some information, rather than saying I understand but or I hear you but blah blah blah, um, you could just make that a sentence. I hear you. I understand what you're saying. That's a sentence. Start a new sentence. Then it doesn't take away the agreement, the validation for that person. Validating what another person says is also really important. You'll find that if this is not something that you're used to doing, just validating people for what they're saying, which is not saying that you agree with them. It's simply validating from an understanding perspective. You can understand something that somebody says to you, and you don't have to agree with it, right? For example, I can understand how some people think that the world is flat. I don't agree with them, but I can understand that you are feeling that way right now, or you are experiencing that. That's what you believe. Then we can talk about the beliefs and all of this other stuff. We can look at evidence and kind of like come to some sort of agreement. It's not to say that I need to rebut you. I can just have my own viewpoint. And it doesn't, like your viewpoint doesn't specifically reflect me. Now, of course, like you could get into those ideas of like, sure, there are things that where it does matter. I'm not talking about those things right now. Um, I acknowledge that those things exist. Really, what I'm talking about here is if you're engaging in situations where the same thing is happening over and over again, and it's happening in different spaces with different places and with different people, and the only constant is you might be the problem. And the great thing about that is you can be part of the solution. If you are the one who can do something about it, if you're the problem, you can do something about it, right? There's the idea that the change is constant, right? This is Heraclitus from like a Greek philosopher. It's also kind of said in many different ways. Change is the only constant. The other piece there is that the understanding that the only thing that you can change is yourself. So if the only thing that you could ever change is yourself, stop trying to change other people. Stop trying to get the external world to change. Rather, focus on yourself, which is to say, you can change yourself. When you change yourself, you change your part of the interaction. You change your part of the loop. If any kind of interaction is some type of psychodynamic loop where we're having a conversation, and because we're both part of it, we're co-creating this experience. If I understand that I am changing myself in a certain way, then that will change other things. For example, if I just right now turn and face like completely backwards, you can still hear me because I have a mic, but then that kind of changes the nature of this video. Like I'm no longer talking to you. I've changed myself. And I don't know like how that would affect how you feel in that particular moment, right? So if I change myself, then the external world will eventually have to change and respond as well to that. So the idea here is understanding that you are part of the problem that you're experiencing. To go full send, you are the problem and you are the solution as well. The solution is in you to manifest, to bring into existence. What happens is we end up, I think, after a certain number of years, running through the same patterns over and over again, running into the same problems over and over again. It's not that you're the problem on purpose. It's you've been taught to do things in a way to try to achieve a certain thing, or to be seen a certain way, or to achieve success. But what's important to remember is that you are not a cookie cutter copy of anybody else in this whole wide world. You may have similarities, may have people that you resonate with, you may have people that think very similarly to you, and that's all well and good. Ultimately, you are unique, you are one of a kind. And knowing exactly who you are is one of the first steps to moving through burnout. Burnout is when you do too much. Short form, DTM. If you are DTM, then you are doing things that are not meant for you. And that is part of the problem. If you are acting in a way that is not fully aligned with you, who you are meant to be in this lifetime, who you've come down into this world, into earth, into this physical experience as, then you're doing too much. You're doing things that are simply not meant for you to do. How do you know what that is? Well, that's where you look into your human design chart. For example, one of the biggest realizations for myself as a projector in human design is understanding that that energy type is not meant to be a builder. It's not meant to be an express builder even. Our energy type as projectors is more of a guide to understand the efficient and wise use of energy. And energy being like how we spend things, it could be like how we do different processes. So the first step to moving through burnout is really understanding clearly who you are in this experience, understanding that part of the problem, if not the full problem, is that you are doing too much. You are doing things that you're not meant to be doing. What those things could look like, it could look like physical things, like you could be going out and trying to like get into spaces and get opportunities and show up and being like, hey, look at me, do all of these things, right? But that might not be your vibe. You could very well be, you could very well have the energy of sitting down, doing things and getting good at the things that you are good at and trusting in the universe to recognize you when the time is right. So understanding that you are the problem. When you can fully say that I am the problem, then you take the power back. If the problem lies outside you, if the problem is the customer who yelled at you, if the problem is like your boss who said something about you or an employee who's not listening, then you will never have any peace. You will just be pointing your fingers all around trying to look for a solution. And I'll end with this. When you point the finger at someone else, you point 3 back at yourself. And that's why I always recommend to point with all your hands this way. But also remember to acknowledge and to accept the fact that you are your own biggest problem. I hope that that's comforting to you. It's meant to be comforting in a really cheeky sort of way. And if it's not, then you probably didn't watch through this whole video. If you still are here and you want to learn more about your human design chart, check the description below and it will have a link where you can get your human design chart. You will then begin to see clearly who you are and begin to understand what things you are doing too much of. Hit me up, like and subscribe for more, put a comment down below, and get in touch with me. Let me know what you think. Peace.